to the MSAD 51 Board of Directors meeting, Thursday, April 3rd. Wow, April, it's here. I feel like it's already been, every day feels like a week this week. So we are going to be starting with some recognitions and highlights, but can we do some approval of minutes? I think we're waiting for our beloved therapy dog to come back in uniform, so we'll just put that after approval of minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 3rd, 2025 meeting as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Kim. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sean. Any questions or comments about the March 3rd meeting? Hearing none. All in favor? Great, it's unanimous. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 6th, 2025 meeting as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Annika. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All in favor? Again, unanimous. Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 20th, 2025 meeting as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Christina. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tim. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All in favor? Okay. And Christina's abstaining?
I wasn't there. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 21st, 2025 meeting as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Tim. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Sarah.
Puts me on.
Any questions or comments? Great. Hearing none. All in favor? Were you not?
Abstain.
Kim was not there. Great.
I was
Thank
not there
you.
either.
And neither was Sean. Oh, 2 abstentions. Okay. We're going to get started on the recognition of Harper, the GHS therapy dog, who I hope stays after the highlights section. Principal Carl Francis is going to do some introductions. Oh, and there we go. Perfect.
Good evening. We are excited about the opportunity to come in and highlight something that we're proud of from Greeley High School. And tonight, I selected our therapy dog program, our therapy, and Harper, our guest of honor today. If you haven't had a chance to meet Harper, Harper's a wonderful comfort to our students and a friend to many of us, and someone we really enjoy to see on a daily basis in the halls of Greeley High School. Today, I wanted to give my time to Denise Allen, who's our health teacher at the high school, who manages the therapy dog program, and mom to Harper. And also we have a student, Hunter Cram, here today, and Hunter's mom is here today too. In case she had some words about her son's experience. So I'd like to turn the podium over to Denise Allen, Hunter, and Mom. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. I really appreciate the opportunity to share the therapy dog program with you and Harper, especially. We are rounding out our 25th year of therapy dog services here at Greeley High School. And it's just been a wonderful trajectory of those 25 years. Harper is our 3rd therapy dog here at the high school. And her primary job is located at in the health classroom. And her job there is to be part of a trauma-informed pedagogy, but also to support social and emotional learning in the classroom. But beyond that, she really reaches far out into the larger school community, amplifying a positive school climate, and also just being brief interventions for students as an on-needed basis, providing some laughter and joy for both staff and students, but also working with individual students, helping to motivate them to reach maybe their IEP goals or some of their other skills that they need to develop as part of their learning continuum here at the high school. I do have a quick little flyer that I put out there that carries a lot more information than what I'm going to share in this brief little introduction. And I'm happy to answer questions, but I think it's best to hear the lived experience from one of our students. So I'm going to turn it over to Hunter.
Thank you. So I've been walking with Harper every week for about maybe a year and a half so far. Let me start from the beginning. When I first started walking with Harper, I was in a bad spot. I had an unknown condition in my leg, which debilitated my ability to walk, which luckily now they have figured out. And all of a sudden, my social worker, Mr. Scott, said, we can start walking with Harper. So I thought I'd go ahead and try it. And after doing it for a couple of weeks, we formed a bond. It's unexplanatory. I mean, I was in a dark spot. I was depressed. I didn't feel much. Wasn't happy, sad, tired, hungry, anything. After I started walking with Harper, though, it just lightened my mood. It was something to look forward to every week. It not only helped my mental health, but also kept me active, helping my legs so it didn't deteriorate. After we keep doing it every week. I think it's a very important program we need to have. They're not just student and staff wise, but whole community wise. I had an altercation with an employee one day here at school, and I was just getting back from a walk with Harper. I was frustrated and anxious and nervous, and she just came over, put her head on my lap, and she felt I was nervous, and everything just went away. So I hope that we can not only keep this program here at the school, but expand it further. And I thank you for letting me speak here. Thank you.
So one of the things you may have noticed is her commands are all American Sign Language, and that's so that our students who are hearing impaired can use the sign language to communicate with her and expand their social interactions as well. She is also, her temperament is, we call her our little athlete. So she does bring her own disposition that we try to blend the program with. One of the things that we're doing right now, because she is a little athlete, is we have a Couch to 5K program that we're offering, and we're helping to get students who are generally not athletes, which can be a bit of a challenge in our school, to have a place to belong and also participate in our Mental Health Cares 5K, which is going to happen in May. And this week, the group of 9 students have made the trajectory of the entire course doing a walk run, and they should be ready to roll by May 4th and be able to participate with the larger school community and feel a sense of pride in having met that goal. So I'm pretty excited about how Harper has bridged that gap for them. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Does anyone on the board have questions? Thank you so much, Dr. Allen, and thank you for bringing Harper to our school community. We would love to also adopt him for school board meetings if that's possible. And Hunter, thank you for coming and speaking about your experience. Really appreciate it. Great. All right, good night. Okay, we'll move on. Excuse me. We'll move on to the public comment section of the agenda. I haven't seen too many people come in late, but in case you have and were interested in signing up, I do have a sign up available. We really value public comment and the opportunity for community members to come in and speak, and to ensure public comment is fair and orderly. We follow procedures outlined in our board policy BEDH, and we ask that all members of the public do so as well. We follow this policy to help keep the meeting civil, respectful, and productive, and we also hope this allows for all community members who would like to speak to be heard. We ask that speakers use the designated podium when making their comments and speak into the microphone, so those of you following at home can also hear our speakers. If you're interested in speaking, I'll be going through the list, and I will also mention that we have 3 minutes assigned to each individual, maximum at a meeting, and the clock, as you see, is visible on the screen, and when the timer goes off, please wrap up your comments. When you go to the podium, please state your name and town of residence or role in the district if you're a staff member. Residents and staff members will be given priority over non-residents within the allotted time. Our policy allows for 30 total minutes of public comment, although that can be modified at the discretion of the board. As a reminder, public comment is not a time for a discussion, Q&A, or debate between the board and speakers. Rather, is it a chance for members of the public to express their opinions on school and educational matters. The board will not comment on remarks made by speakers during the comment period. Please know that this does not mean that we are not listening, and it does not express any agreement or disagreement with your statement. Lastly, please keep your comments respectful and civil. We are neighbors here. Be kind. That includes member of the audience. Please do not interrupt or respond to the speaker's comments. We also ask that comments be addressed to myself, the chair, and do not direct comments at or about individuals in our schools and communities. I do want to note that I will stop any comment that is contrary to the rules. So I will use the list, and it appears that everyone is either a community member or a staff, so I'll just go in order if that's okay. Carrie Koch.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Cook. I'm a resident of North Yarmouth, and I have 2 kids in the Greeley system. I wanted to read a petition that we sent to the school board about a month ago. Dear MSAD 51 School Board, as a group of concerned parents and members of the MSAD 51 community, we request that the school board consider a revision of the policy on use of personal cellular devices. With the laudatory effort of the MSAD 51 School Board this year to focus on mental health and wellness of its students, we believe that it is time to reconsider the current policy regarding use of cellular devices. The most recent version of the policy was written in 2010, with a subsequent revision in 2016. Since that time, global understanding of the significant impact of cellular devices in the school has evolved. Many school districts nationwide, and in fact some entire states, are enacting complete bell-to-bell cell phone-free schools in an effort to curb loneliness and mental health struggles in adolescents. Locally in Maine, the Bath School District has recently become cell phone-free from bell to bell this year. Per reports from their administration, the benefits of this limitation have been widespread and inspiring. We ask the MSAD 51 School Board to consider making all schools in the Greeley system cell phone free from bell to bell. We recognize the challenge and difficulty of implementing cell phone free schools. Ask most parents and teachers, however, and you will hear that we are already in difficult times. Struggles to teach focus when an addicting technology is at hand constantly, worries about photography or filming while in educational spaces, and teaching in-person social interactions when online social media is so compelling are but a few of the challenges parents, teachers, and students face. We sincerely appreciate your ongoing efforts focused on the well-being of our children, and we look forward to the conversation this will open. And this was signed by about 145 members of the community, parents and family members. And I completely understand that this is a big topic and also potentially a very controversial topic, and that conversations around it can be quite difficult. But I think that as a community, we can have difficult conversations, and even if it doesn't end in the place that we want it to end, I think that act of having those discussions is really important, and also shows our kids that we can do difficult things and we can have difficult conversations and disagree on things. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next, I have Katie Dexter. Okay, that's fine.
My name is Katie Dexter, and I'm an English teacher at Greeley High School and a resident of North Yarmouth. I'm speaking on behalf of the GHS English Department. We would like to share our concerns about the proposed reduction in staff in our department for next year, and to follow up since our department chair last spoke at the MSAD 51 board meeting on March 20th. At that meeting, the argument was made that the high school offered varied programming, electives, and learning labs, and that while this is wonderful and what we wish for our students, For budgetary reasons, it's time to tighten our belts. It was implied that the English department can handle this reduction without much impact. We are here to give you our perspective of what this reduction means from where we stand on the ground where learning happens, and we hope that you are open to hearing us. First, finding ways to trim English positions by cutting electives relies on a misunderstanding of what electives do in our program. English is required of all students for their 4 years of high school. Cutting electives is really about cutting choices and increasing class sizes for non-AP and IB students, which will undermine our efforts to meet student needs. It's wonderful that we offer IB and AP courses, and it is equally wonderful that in 12th grade we offer options such as public speaking, real-world reading and writing, creative writing, fantasy sci-fi. Those options will be reduced because we now need teachers to fill the void of the 9th and 11th grades as a result of the reduction in staff to our department. There are other significant impacts of reducing teaching assignments in the English department. We mentioned earlier that English language arts is one subject that is required of all students for 4 years. There is good reason for this. English standards are fundamental to student success in every academic discipline, not to mention their whole lives. Yes, we currently have multiple ways to support the needs of our students. This year, we have so far facilitated over 700 meetings with students in our English lab, in addition to our Tier 3 literacy interventions, but a reduction in the English department staff will lead to cuts in programming, literacy support, and services offered through the English lab. We believe firmly in the model that our numbers support it. We are told that the English lab and our literacy specialists are highly valued by the administration, the parents, the students. But the reduction tells us they are also considered expendable. Thank you.
So would you like a reset of the timer? Yes. Thank you. Great.
Dexter. Okay. I'm Susan Inman, Chair of the GHS English Department. Our staff will be stretched by the proposed reduction in our department. Losing a teacher will require restructuring who teaches what, and the impact of these changes includes the loss of collaboration and teacher expertise, the increase in number of preps for some, the increase in number of students for nearly all teachers, and the increase in class sizes in many cases. All of these changes lead to a decrease in the quality of instruction and feedback teachers can provide their students. What's at the top of the list for best practices in writing instruction? Timely feedback. While our department aims to keep class sizes lower in CP classes than in honors, AP, and IB classes, we cannot always do this, and when we can't, the students are the ones who suffer the consequences. Next year, our expected net gain at GHS will be 24 students, 7 more than GMS. Specifically, we will be increasing from 150 ninth graders this year to 177 next year. This increase will have a significant impact on the ninth grade program in our department, not to mention the rest of GHS. The science department especially continues to feel the loss of recent teaching positions, and it will only get worse as enrollment increases. And now we would be remiss if we did not comment on behalf of our colleague who is being involuntarily reassigned to the middle school. To hear at the board meeting that it is commonplace to move staff around based on enrollments is to feel like game pieces on a chessboard and not like human beings. While it is true that our certification says 7 to 12, the reality is that teachers become experts in their subjects and grade levels. Very few teachers are comfortable in both worlds. Our colleague may have taught at the middle school, but she worked hard to move to the high school for a reason, and she found peace, joy, and fulfillment here. In her, we found a colleague with so much to offer our team and our students in terms of expertise and new ideas. This person is an exceptional and intuitive teacher who holds students accountable and leads students to be better writers and critical thinkers, exactly what students need as they prepare for advanced studies and navigation of the world after high school. She's exceedingly well suited to teach this age group. we are saddened that the district would take someone with 23 years of service and upend her career this way. To be clear, the members of this department love this district. We love our students, our colleagues, and the families who contribute to this remarkable community. We are grateful to be part of it, and we hope you'll reconsider this reduction. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. So then I have Alicia Goldblatt. Great.
I knew I was next on the list. Good evening. My name is Alicia Goldblatt. I'm an English teacher at Greeley High School. I've taught English in this district since 2002. I'm a graduate of Bowdoin College and Boston University, and I'm here tonight to plead with you not to reassign me to the middle school. 2 weeks ago, I was abruptly informed that I would no longer be allowed to teach at Greeley High School. My position at the high school, teaching 2 9th and 2 11th grade classes, is being eliminated. This creates hardship for the students. English teachers are expected to provide comprehensive, personalized feedback on writing assignments. This is much more difficult in larger classes. For me personally, the news was devastating. I did love my time at GMS, and for 20 years, I devoted all my energies to the students there. However, throughout my tenure, I applied hopefully for every GHS position that opened because I knew that's where my skills as a writer and teacher would be best utilized. And the last 3 years have shown me that high school is where I belong. I patiently waited 2 decades to have the chance to work at this level. I have 23 years of service and a master's degree in English literature. I'm a poet and a writer with many published pieces, and I'm the advisor to Inkwell, the school literary magazine, which won an award last year from the National Council of Teachers of English. I have the proven merit to remain at GHS, yet I'm being reassigned. There was no warning, no discussion, and no consideration of my seniority or skills. There was no consideration of my dedication and devotion for the past 23 years. My colleagues, students, and their parents can testify to my kind approach and high expectations. I've taught over 1,600 students in this community. I've provided written feedback on more than 16,000 pieces of writing. When will I have done enough to earn respect and fair treatment, or to prove that I'm worthy? One of the hardest lessons to teach our students is that there's no shame in reconsidering a stance. It is instead a sign of intelligence and courage. As every good teacher knows, the most compelling way we teach is by example. I hope that this additional information will cause you to rethink your decision to reassign me. And I have a letter of support that was signed by about 50 people in the district. So if I could just pass it, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so next on the list I have, and apologies if I don't say this correctly, Karen Sim. Thank you. Welcome.
My name is Karen Similaro. I'm a mother of 2. I have a student at Mabel I. Wilson and a student at Greeley. This should be brief. I just want to thank the school district. We moved here from Texas 2 years ago, and there's a lot going on. I really appreciate the communication that's coming out to the community in this time. School board meetings in Texas can be notoriously they're just notorious, let's say that. And so, I'm just here tonight to offer my support to the board and to acknowledge the incredibly difficult situation we've been placed in. And as someone who's been a teacher, an English teacher, an administrator, and worked in education for over 20 years, you know, what's happening right now is not just a local issue, it's part of a much larger national issue. And I work with districts and schools across the nation, and they're feeling it too. And so I just want to thank you for your communication. My daughter comes home, she knows facts, which I think is incredibly important as well. And I feel very strongly that federal funding, which we know is utilized for our students, for meals, for special education, for all those things, should never be weaponized in any way. So I just want to say I'm very, very appreciative of the communication that you've been sharing with us.
Thank you. Okay, I'm having trouble reading handwriting and I apologize.
Graham Shaw.
Oh, Graham. Jeez, Graham. Come on.
You've got
Was
so
that-
many English teachers.
Was that on
right?
purpose?
Hi, I'm Graham Shove, president of the MSAD 51 Employee Association. I'd like to draw the board's attention to your Finance Committee's mission statement as written on the district website. The mission states that the budget development process will include meeting with the board, administration, and association leadership to develop an inclusive feedback loop to inform budget development. I'm sure you all are aware that the board did not meet with association leadership to inform the budget this year. This omission is indicative of how the leadership of this district approaches problem solving. If the board had met with the association, here's something we might have pointed out. This budget has proposed $200,000 for legal services next year. This is more than double the amounts that surrounding districts have proposed in their budgets next year. Yarmouth has budgeted $62,000, Falmouth $75,000, and Freeport a paltry $20,000. If you have been around long enough, you know that this district has a reputation for using litigation as a first, second, and third choice when faced with conflict. The numbers prove this reputation. Our district doesn't operate, other districts don't operate in this way. This large of a discrepancy is not accidental or a one-off. It comes from choices. Using litigation as your preferred problem-solving mechanism creates many issues far beyond the huge cost to taxpayers. I will discuss two. First, it leads to opaque decision-making. If an administration is always preparing for litigation, there will be a tendency towards secrecy. Openness and honesty are key components in successful problem-solving approaches, but in litigation, they are liabilities. You must limit and restrict who you communicate with, how you communicate, and what you reveal. Secondly, it creates a deterrent to engaging in robust problem-solving processes because litigation is used as the alternative to these. Litigation shifts the focus to maintaining decision-making authority above all else, devaluing problem-solving processes, and dissuading attempts to raise concerns. Essentially, this destroys inclusive feedback loops. Because the school district is a community organization, it is vitally important to support robust problem-solving and feedback processes, because we all don't agree all the time, and running an organization this large is immensely complex. If you use inclusive, robust processes, you will be including important stakeholders in the problem-solving process, creating a strong sense of community while also working through issues before making important decisions. When you don't use these processes and choose to litigate, you destroy the sense of community and exclude stakeholders. I'm not sure how this district became so litigious, but I do know exactly who benefits. It is worrisome to think that the entity giving legal advice, often advice on whether or not to litigate or continue litigation, is also the one that benefits from the hourly bills during litigation. Instead of reducing an English teaching position at the high school, I encourage the board to hire someone new for the position at the middle school. A new teaching position costs about $105,000. If you would reconsider some of the legal budget line item, you could use these resources to benefit students and staff of the district, while at the same time structurally limiting the use of litigation as a problem-solving choice. This would hopefully lead to the creation and use of more robust feedback and problem-solving processes in all areas of the district. Thank you.
And then Hunter, I have you.
My apologies. I thought it was a sign-in sheet.
Oh, no problem. I mean, you're welcome to. Yeah, okay. No, okay, great. No, no problem. We're glad you're here. Jared Bard.
My apologies. I did have something prepared, but I decided not to speak.
Okay, thank you. Evelyn Spencer. Oh, that's no problem. Take your time.
Hello. So probably should have come to last month's meeting with Andrea Berry and I forget his name. But first, I'd like to echo the statements they made in support of trans youth before I make my statement. My name is Evelyn Spencer, and I am a senior at the University of Southern Maine, and I live in North Yarmouth. I feel that the current political climate has obfuscated necessary discussion on the complex issue of fairness in high school and collegiate sports. I know you guys are all tired of hearing about it. I feel that it's necessary for me to disclose that I'm a transgender woman, and this is obviously very personal to me. Title IX was developed to prevent sex-based discrimination and gives women the opportunity to meaningfully participate in competitive sports. If the meaning of Title IX is incompatible with Maine law, Title IX must be followed first. Federal law is the law of the land, and to defend a state policy which is likely to be overturned by the courts is a waste of energy and resources. The federal administration of Title IX holds supremacy over any state-level protections for protected groups. We need to direct our energy in a more productive direction on this issue as such. The 2020 Title IX rule leaves room for interpretation on this issue. The state of Maine and MSAD 51 have a responsibility to set the tone for other states and districts to follow. The participation of transgender women, meaning those who are transitioning from male to female, in women's sports should be considered on a case-by-case basis as such. It is a fact of biology that any individual who goes through a male puberty experiences permanent changes to their musculoskeletal system, including broadened shoulders, increased sensitivity to testosterone, and more. Transgender women who have gone through a male puberty have significant biological advantages in women's competitive sports as a result of these changes, even if they have been on hormone replacement therapy for years. The inclusion of these individuals in women's sports constitutes Title IX discrimination against cisgender women, meaning women who were born female. This violation is not as a result of transgender women being viewed as male under the current administration, but because the inclusion of these individuals puts cisgender women at an inherent disadvantage in many athletic sports. This advantage and subsequent Title IX violation is absent in those transgender women who have not gone through a male puberty, such as those who were placed on puberty blockers at a young age and underwent female puberty via hormone replacement therapy. The controversy around these treatments notwithstanding, these individuals do exist, and their participation in women's sports does not constitute a Title IX violation, as these individuals do not have an inherent advantage against cisgender women. Requiring transgender women who have not gone through a male puberty to compete against cisgender men in sports is a violation of their state-level protections under the Maine Human Rights Act. For our community to simultaneously support transgender people and align with all applicable law, we need to modify our policy to address the complexities of this issue. This is a difficult situation, but one that poses an opportunity for MSAD 51 to modify our policies in the pursuit of fairness and equity for all students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was everyone I had on the list. So thank you. We are going to close public comment. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome to stay. I mean, anyone can stay. Exactly. The agenda is good. Thank you. Please. Thank you for staying, because we have our stakeholder survey results up next, which I think is a great thing to stay for. Thank you, Mari Treblecock, for presenting this year's stakeholder survey results.
Okay, give me a second. Okay. All right. Oh, geez, there are papers here. Hang on one second. I'm just going to put those down here. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for making time for me to share our recent stakeholder survey data with you all this evening. Each year, as you know, we survey staff, students, and families to gauge satisfaction in how we're doing as a district. And so here are the results for this year. So our survey data gives us trends over time that help us set goals, reflect on our progress towards those goals, and adjust direction as needed. It's one of many measures that we use to track how we're doing as a district and in the individual schools as well. So I followed Jeff's approach from prior years in putting this presentation together so you can see how our story progresses over the last 3 years, including this year. So I haven't changed anything in how you would interpret the slideshow I'm about to share with you. Satisfaction is really defined as 80% or more positive responses. So these are folks who responded they strongly agree or agree to the statement as it's written. Items that are highlighted in green represent a 4 or more % gain in satisfaction over the prior year. Items that are flagged in yellow represent a 4 or more % drop in satisfaction over the prior year. That's a little bit of a tongue twister. So here we go. On this slide, you can see that our response rate has declined among all stakeholders. So I thought it was important to just note that. I think it's important that we consider that decline in response rate as we examine all of our data and take everything with a little bit of a grain of salt. With only 28% of our parents and guardians responding, I have to ask questions, right? I question why a large majority of our community isn't responding to the survey. Are they reasonably satisfied with how things are going and don't feel like they need to respond? Is the survey too long? Are we asking the right questions? Is it survey fatigue? So the lower percentage of participation for me breeds more questions than answers. But still, we do have some data, and we have that data to examine what's happening over time with the responses that we get, right? And so we just want to be mindful as we look at our data that it's not a full representation of our whole community. And I just think it's important to point that out. I also think there's something to be said for us to think about why is the response rate a little lower, and are there things that we can do to boost that? Okay, so students in grades 3 through 5, here you can see that they're pretty satisfied with their experiences at school. Several areas show at least a 4 percentage point improvement over last year. To me, this is great news, and it reflects the attention and effort that our teachers and building administrators make toward creating a positive learning environment and making personal connections with each student. So when it says 98% of our students say that their teacher cares about them, that to me is a really big deal. My teacher helps me when I don't understand something. Students at school treat me with respect has increased. So these are all great signs, right? And then in terms of areas in grades 3 through 5 where the satisfaction was below 80%, there were no areas in grades 3 through 5 below 80% except this one. I make choices about what I learn. This was slightly better than last year, but still below that 80% threshold. But all the rest of the areas were above 80%, so that's great news. So students in grades 6 through 12, this slide tells a story that in many areas our student satisfaction in grades 6 through 12 is improving. We can see many areas where there were 4 or more percentage points of gain from last year to this year. Some areas I think that are notable, the work I do in class challenges me to think has increased from 85% to 90% of students saying they agree with that. Teachers are available for help at 92% of the students saying that they agree with that statement. Feelings of belonging have increased from 78% to 82%. So we see some nice shifts here and incremental gains. Maybe not as striking as in the 3 through 5 students, but still on an upswing with these values. So here you can see areas in 2025 where student satisfaction in grades 6 through 12 is below 80%. There's some good improvement in several areas and some mostly flat satisfaction in after-school clubs and arts opportunities. There was only one new area below 80% this year, and that was art offerings after school. So the story for me here is that we're still working on the same areas this year that we were working on last year, making what I would describe as slow and steady progress. The gains are slower, but there's still some gains, with the exception of student-to-student interactions. Here you can see harassment and bullying are treated seriously. 66% students agreed with that. Students at my school treat each other with respect is pretty flat at 62%. So that student-to-student interaction is slower going. Okay, so staff satisfaction. Staff satisfaction of 80% or higher is mostly consistent with last year, with 2 areas of notable improvement, namely that technology is adequate and reliable. That's gone up a bit from 87% to 93%, agreeing with that statement. And that district communication is strong, with 91% of folks saying that they felt that they have good communication from the district. So you'll see here that there's some movement up and down over the last 3 years in several staff satisfaction areas. I think when we look at the 3 years holistically, so when you're looking at an indicator across all 3 years, the overall trend line looks pretty flat to me, with 2 notable exceptions to that interpretation. The first is that staff confidence in meeting the needs of advanced learners has dropped a bit overall, and as we work to build our staff capacity through our multi-tiered systems of support to meet the needs of our higher learners, I'm hopeful that that indicator will improve. There's a learning curve there, and we're working on that, so I'm hoping that that value will change over time. Secondly, the perception of staff that they receive formal feedback through performance reviews has jumped. And this is one area where we've been working hard to make sure that everyone receives formal evaluative feedback on a scheduled cycle. So this one makes me really happy, because this is an area where I've been focusing to make sure that people are getting feedback on their work. And clearly they're seeing a little bit of improvement there. Okay. So for parents and guardians, satisfaction over 80% or above, you can see minor fluctuations in responses and high rates of satisfaction overall. Many responses are 95 to 99% in terms of satisfaction. So that's consistent over time, and also really positive feelings about our school community. And again, here, indicators show steady, positive, or flat growth in parent satisfaction over the 3-year span. So even though these don't have green necessarily, you can see some incremental increases in some areas. For example, understanding the academic expectations of my child's school year went from 90 to 91 to 93% over the 3 years. So tiny adjustments, but overall satisfaction. Okay, so here we can see huge jumps in satisfaction in sports and arts opportunities offered to students through the school. Administrative response has also jumped 15 percentage points, which is really nice to see that there's a feeling that the building administrators respond to parents' concerns and questions. And then you can see some nice growth in satisfaction with bus safety here. It's still below 80%, but it's steadily moving in a positive direction. I would attribute this probably, I'm speculating here, but I would attribute it probably to having the camera technology on the buses now, so that's definitely having an impact on student behavior on the buses, so there's less to be feeling unsafe about on the buses because it's monitored really closely. So that's great news. There has been a dip in satisfaction among parents in the after-school club offerings available for students, and I think that's something we should monitor. And this was interesting to me because the athletic offerings and the arts offerings jumped significantly, but this took a little bit of a dip. So I wonder why, but that's our data, so. Okay, so summary. Last year, feelings of belonging were on our list of areas for monitoring, and here you can see they're now on the list of areas of satisfaction. So I would attribute this to the conscious effort across our schools to cultivate safe and welcoming learning environments for all of our students and to build relationships with each of our students. When I look at this summary, the story it tells me is that across stakeholder groups, there's a sense of pride in our schools. There's a collective focus on high expectations for learning and companion levels of support for students to achieve at those high levels. I want to highlight the clarity of teacher expectations bullet there. It tells me that our efforts are where they need to be to remain a high achieving school district. There's a lot of research out there that shows the impact of teacher clarity and high expectations for learning on student achievement. It's known that those things influence student growth. To me, this is really great news for us, right? Because when a teacher has high expectations, students can make more than a year's growth in a year's time. It's how you move mountains in a school district. And so for me, this is an area of satisfaction for us and really great news. If I'm going to highlight anything, it's that. Okay, so we do have some areas to continue working on, right? Some of those areas, like bus safety, have been steadily improving over the last 3 years. It's just slow going, and I would expect incremental gains to continue. Other areas, like after-school club offerings, will require new attention to both understand what's going on and then act upon it in a meaningful way. And then student choice in learning, bullying, and harassment are areas that require continued ongoing attention. I would argue that those always require continued and ongoing attention because we want our students to value their learning experience and we want them to feel safe and comfortable in school. So those are two big points that we need to keep working on. So how satisfied are our stakeholders? You can see here an increase in satisfaction among all of the stakeholder groups except our staff, where satisfaction remains flat. The majority of this slide, to me, is really promising news when you dig into the satisfaction of students in grades 6 through 12, which has increased but is still only at 62%. I'm not happy with 62%. I want that to be higher. But we can see improvement in multiple areas that have not yet reached that 80% satisfaction rate. So when you factor in the areas where they're improving, the percentage of increasing satisfaction plus satisfaction over 80% is at 76% as opposed to the 62. Okay, so when you factor in that we're on the upswing, that's helpful. So I think we're getting there with our secondary students, and we have more work to do. Similarly, I'm not satisfied with 52% satisfaction among staff, but we have a number of things in place that we will continue to focus on relative to our staff satisfaction. So I just want to highlight a few of those things for you. We have a new teacher's contract, which I think makes a difference. There are 90-day rounding interviews that we've implemented this year to check in with new hires to make sure that we're meeting their needs and they're feeling comfortable in their work environment. That's with all new staff. We have our new teacher series. We are providing an increase in formal feedback from administrators to teachers on their teaching practice. And we also have, as part of the new contract, an additional self-directed professional learning day that will be implemented in the coming school year. So that values a little bit of autonomy in learning. So the bottom line here, we can see incremental gains in satisfaction levels overall, and we have some room for improvement. So with that was a lot of information I just threw at you. What questions do you have for me?
Sure. A lot of people have questions. I just have a quick question about the prior slide. So just about who's included in each group. Staff includes like teachers, ed techs. Does it include bus drivers? Like who's included in this group?
Yes, it includes the staff in the district. Yes.
Okay. So across all positions. And then I know this is summary information being presented publicly, but are building administrators given their specific results? So I know we combined 6 to 12, but then are the results given at the building level?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking it. So each building administrator, we all receive the district data. And then each building administrator receives the data for their schools and track that over time. And they're all setting goals related to the feedback that they get. So, you know, if I, as a building administrator, got feedback from that my staff felt like I didn't communicate well, I would be setting a goal for myself around communication. Okay. So, yes.
And so what about the staff survey results? Are those shared? Are those then cut in other ways and then shared with buildings or heads of departments?
Yes, they receive feedback from their staff, the people who work in their buildings, their percentages for all of these same questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's really helpful. All right. Jesse?
Yeah, just about, the parent response. Are there any strategies to try and get those numbers up? So I had to dig a little bit to find the email where I got mine. And to be honest, I'm not sure I filled it out or not. And I think we only got one email, and I know we get a lot of emails from the district, and if we have more than one kid, we're very busy, so, we may be well-intentioned, and so maybe for next year, could we do follow-ups? Like, can we ping people's phones? Is there a way we can, try and get parents more engaged who would have filled it out had maybe they,
Yes, I think
brought to their attention or it didn't get lost, or, I'm just wondering, are there other things we can do to try and get a bigger response?
Yes, I think that's what I was saying about trying to get to the bottom of why we're not getting that response. I think it could be any number of things. And certainly, there's this dance, right, between communicating and sending out the survey and then plaguing people, right? And finding that sweet spot between, I've received this communication 15 times and you're killing me, right? Right? So it's about finding that sweet spot. But I think you're right. We probably could send it out a little bit more and get some more response, because like everyone else, guilty, it sits in my inbox. I'll get to that, and then you forget about it, right? So I think you're absolutely right. We could do more.
And parents, do we receive an email for each child? Or does it depend on if they're in different buildings?
I don't think you get an email for each child. I don't know for sure. Jeff, do you know the answer to that?
I don't believe so.
I think it's one, but you're able, when you go into the survey, to enter
reflect which
for each school that your child attends. Okay. But I don't think you get more than one communication.
Okay. And then are those results then also sorted by buildings and given to administrators, like parents of kids in this building?
Yes. So each building administrator receives the staff survey data, the parent and guardian survey data, and in grades 3 through 12, the student survey data. So for example, Wilson School principal will get just 3rd grade data.
Yep, that makes sense. Questions?
Okay, I'll jump in. Thanks for this, and it was nice to have the continuity. To see something, it was much easier for me to interpret it. So I appreciate that. One of my thoughts as I look through some of the questions is, do you guys align questions between the student, the staff, and the parent? Because we see things from the staff that might be like, I don't feel like we are impacting unmotivated kids. There was like a question around that. And I don't know, like Jesse, I filled this out last year, but I definitely didn't do it this year. So I don't remember what information you kind of collect on the parent at that time, but it would be really nice, especially as we have issues or we have challenges in some of our, I think what the teachers or staff had reported about advanced kids, special education kids, unmotivated kids, how that aligns with how the parent feels.
Sure.
And if those parents are feeling similarly, like I have a special ed kid, and I don't feel like their satisfaction rate is different than like the general public. So do we align them?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I think some of them are aligned and some of them are not. And so I think I could go on and on about ways that we can improve our survey design, right? That's probably a conversation for another night.
I love the continuity, so yeah.
But I do think, an example for me is some of the questions that are posed to staff don't parse out teaching staff from our ed techs or other support staff, and their answers might be different depending on the nature of the question. So I think there's room for a better alignment, certainly between the surveys, and also adjusting how some of these statements are made to improve the clarity on the interpretation end of really understanding what folks are telling us.
Yeah, I think that would be beneficial if we could have more connection between how each are experiencing those various buckets of it. So if we do redo the survey, which I agree, I think there probably needs to be a revamp of that. We've seen a lot of the same data over time. I think we need to start digging into certain things. I am super concerned about the staff satisfaction rate over 3 years, and I am continue to be puzzled. I asked this last year of why there's such a gap between the parent and the staff, and I fear that if the staff continues that way and we start seeing impact in retention, and I think a lot of the satisfaction stuff, I hear you on the contract stuff, but I think there's much more from a cultural standpoint that I fear retention gets impacted, and then the quality of instruction, our continuity and professional development, what we're like, there's something about in here. I have a voice in matters that related to school improvement. That one's at 51%. And then my school provides me with relevant professional learning experiences. Those are two big ones, I think, that will impact a person's job satisfaction if they stay here or not. And I fear that the parent satisfaction rate will soon follow or drop if we start losing some of the heart of our district, which is the quality teachers. And so I am very troubled by the flat line of that. Very, 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 very troubled. But I appreciate the honesty to which you approached it, and that we're not hiding that, and we're sharing it with it, and we are doing things to make it better. I just, up here, am a little...
Yeah, I share that angst. I do. I said I'm not happy with 52%, and the fact that it's flat as well. Even if I had seen a 2 or 3 percentage point increase, I would start to say, well, at least we're making some incremental gains. So I share your concerns for sure.
Christina.
Thank you. Just to follow up, and I apologize if I missed this, to his point about the staff view on things, do you have the breakdown from the different schools? I know from a few years ago, especially with Maple I being so overcrowded, and after we didn't have the first referendum pass through, of course they were very dissatisfied and crowded and stressed. Do you have any sense of whether, at least at that school, has it improved as they know they're getting?
So I would say that what I have observed in the schools is a little bit of up and down depending on the indicator, right? So yes, there's been improvement in some of the indicators at each of the schools, and there's also been some incremental declines in places. I think the threads that are consistent across schools are the ones that Tim highlighted, the having the voice and choice, especially in the professional development. So, and I agree with the statement that those are things that contribute to a professional sense of efficacy in some ways. So, but I couldn't point to one specific thing in a particular school, because it really is kind of up and down depending on what the indicator is.
Again, I also apologize if you addressed this and I missed it. Approximately when was the survey put out?
It was put out in late
January
January,
13th.
February-ish.
I got it January 13th.
Yeah. And it was open, for about a month.
And was that before the contract?
Yeah,
was-
that was a question that I had about when I know the contract went into January.
It definitely was around when the
Yep.
contract was being settled, and a lot of the payroll stuff was still being taken care of at that time. So there was a lot going on.
Yeah,
So that might be a factor.
Yeah, and not just to say that it was just that, because I think we've seen like these numbers very similarly, but I hope that some of the changes we made around professional development in the contract will potentially result in higher satisfaction. I mean, that wasn't in place at this time when that survey came out, so they hadn't experienced that, but that certainly was a board goal. I mean, I would be very interested to continue the conversations of things that, the board can support to ensure that teachers and staff, because again, this is not just teachers, feel engaged in some of the decision making. And do administrators or department heads, do they have their own goals related to some of the staff survey feedback?
They do.
Certainly in those areas that we're
Yes.
seeing pretty low.
So they'll look at their building survey data, and they definitely pay attention to the parent and guardian data, but that's so consistently high that that's probably not the place where they're going to choose a goal area, right? Because if the satisfaction is high, you're gonna focus on the places where there might be some lower satisfaction to start your goal setting. But you're looking at your data and you're saying, well, my students are not happy with the feedback that they're getting. So you'll target that and aim towards improving that. They're not feeling safe in school potentially, so you aim towards that. So, remember that that last year the feelings of belonging were lower for students. They're higher now. I would say that was intentional because goals were set around that topic, and the same is true for staff satisfaction. So when we see that staff don't feel like they have a voice in decision making, we set goals and make active steps to think about, all right, how do we create opportunities for staff to have voice in decision making?
Yeah, and I do think I feel a responsibility as a board member to find ways that the board can help support the staff. I mean, I also recognize that being in public schools right now, and really for the past number of years, is very challenging.
But it's easy to be on a board.
Yes, this is really easy. And so, but I'm not also going to use that as an excuse for why the numbers are low. I think there are things that we can do within our schools to continue to look at these things with our staff.
Can I add to that real quick? Because one of the reasons why the angst that got to me was because I feel like we, as a board, have invested a lot in that. Like, we talk about that all the time, and to not see that movement is like, oh. So that's one thing. And then the second thing around this too, which I'm really curious about, like, we have students and like staff here, is when I'm in the buildings, I don't feel this. Like I feel very different culture, and when we've done the walkthroughs, but even as like a parent and like no one knows where I'm in and I'm just like snooping around, I do not feel that at all. So I am curious, is this a surprise to the students and like staff that we have here? Because I'm surprised. I see that.
Sean?
Thinking about these results, and you mentioned goals. So the building administrator set goals. Are those goals shared with the staff? And if they are, how do they feel about the goals that are set? Is there a feedback loop, like saying, oh, I agree with that goal, and then knowing those goals from last year, does the staff as a whole feel like those goals were met, or were we feeling like we're repeating the same goals every year and not, like the action items aren't correct, totally aligned?
It's a great question. So, yes, staff are involved with goal setting. Different administrators handle it differently. I think I'm going to speak in really general terms right now, but typically what you might see happening is the administrators are looking at their data and then they bring it to their leadership team first to process it with their leadership team. And so goal setting is done there. They will also often take it and share it with staff at a staff meeting and get feedback and input there. But the goal setting is typically done at the leadership team level because your teacher leaders are representatives. So they're going back to their peeps, right, and getting input on what those goals ought to be. What do we need to focus on? Interestingly, when I've done that, when I was at the middle school and did that, more often the teachers were hyper-focused on the student response as it related to their work as teachers, and that's where they wanted to put their energy. And I was more focused on the feedback about me as an administrator, right? I think you really pay attention to the things that reflect your domain, your work, right? And so they were very focused on student issues. So I think that's where the focus on belonging has come from, because initially that feedback was a little bit lower about not feeling sense of belonging, and that was generated from a groundswell of teachers really wanting to focus on that. Does that answer your question? And then you reflect on it to see, so there's an annual reflection on how did we do.
Do you feel like in your time in that role that the action items consistently stayed the same, or do you think that it's an evolving problem every year?
I found that usually, I took it really personally, right? I really was very invested in the feedback that we were getting, and so the things that we chose to work on, we did see incremental gains from one year to the next. But you might have something else that drops, and so then you're going to shift your energy, or maybe not. Maybe you're not satisfied with the growth in that year, and you're going to continue to work on that thing.
Because the results don't really align with, or at least what our perception of what we're seeing. It doesn't align with that. It says that maybe the action items don't align with what the teachers really need, or I would think we'd see more progress if they align better with what the underlying issues are.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I also think it's important to remember that not all of the staff members responding to this are teachers, and yet some of the questions are really teacher-oriented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So somebody who isn't working directly with students might say that they don't feel confident they might say, I feel confident in meeting the learning needs of my most advanced students. They might be saying, well, I'm not working with the most advanced students. No, right? So.
Yeah, okay. So that kind of plays back to what Tim was saying, is like having different buckets.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions? Thank you so much, Mari. Really appreciate it. And this will be shared out with the community, and please feel free to reach out to the board. Mari, if you have any additional questions, this is the first time the board is seeing this, but it will be shared out with the entire school community. Thank you. All right. Now we're moving to a full set of items for action. Annika, I think whenever you're ready, I am going to ask you to maybe start making the motions. And if
I'd
you
like
want
to
to
move to take them
recommend.
together.
Okay. Yes.
Do you need a Red Bull before you do this?
You sure? You don't?
5 hour energy.
So, I think when we last revisited these policies in November of last year, we took them together at that time. All of the policies under item for action, well, I guess I have to make the motion. Okay, so
Great.
how do I make the motion?
Yes.
I
move
move to
yep.
Group all the policies together.
group all the policies together.
A through whichever you're
Yes,
grouping.
items 6A through G.
Great. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jesse. All right, then I'll open it up for presentation on the.
Sure.
Great.
I can launch into that a little bit more. So, as I was saying, when we last revisited these policies, they are all related to our non-discrimination and harassment policies at the federal level, the Title IX policies at the state level, the Maine Human Rights Act, and other state laws. And so when we last revisited them in November, we took them also as a group. And the current iteration that is before you all this evening is as a result of the new administration coming in, and under President Biden in 2024, there were rules that were changed to Title IX. And so when we last revisited these policies in November of last year, it was to adopt those rules that had been in place since the beginning of the school year, of this current school year. And those rules have now gone back to the 2020 rules, which the school board had previously adopted in 2021, with an update related to state law and the Maine Human Rights Act in 2023. So essentially all of the policies before you are going back to that 2023 revision that accounts for the 2020 federal rules and the 2023 state rules. And it did take us a little while to bring this before you, in part just because that's the process. So as I said, we last revisited these, or we last adopted the policies in November for laws that had gone into effect for the beginning of the school year. And of course, we're following the law during that time. And as we have now, been following the law and just gotten through the policy process through the guidance from the Maine Student Management Association and legal counsel to bring these before you at this time. So happy to take questions or other comments from policy members.
No? Any questions, comments?
I have one. So if you go to the board website and click on policy AC, it reflects these changes?
No. Not on the website yet, not until we have approved them.
So I shouldn't have said that like a question. Reflects these changes. So when I clicked on the policy AC, it reads exactly like the draft that we got. Because I wanted to compare something, so I'm just curious.
So like red stuff that's red scratched over?
No, I mean like
strike through?
Okay, so everything in blue. maybe I'm confused. Everything in blue is being added now, or that was added in November?
So it is going to be a little confusing because of the process that we use to get back to these 2023 policies. If you look at the writing in blue. So what you see before you, if you click on the link that was in the packet, is actually we started from our 2021. First we went back to the 2021 iteration. And then the blue is what was updated in 2023, or as a result of like the more recent guidance, which is essentially all the 2023 language that was added at that time based on state law. So it's not, what you're looking at is not, I don't believe, it's not what actually changed from what we approved in last November to now.
Okay.
It's a little more.
Okay, I apologize.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I was going to point that out. It's a good question, Ken.
So like, for example, genetic information, that's coming out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because that's
Only related to students, though.
Okay.
There is a genetic information protection for employees. That's under employment law. That is a employment law. It's not a law that relates to students. And so that actually, this is exactly how it read in November 2024. We had that same conversation.
And then genetic information isn't listed in the Maine Human Rights Act, which is why it's not
Right.
reflected for students. It's only an employment law.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I'll have to say, like, this packet has been the most confusing on the policy side. Aka's done a really nice job of like having control over it. Every single time I come into these, and I wasn't at the last one, which I now am very happy that I wasn't at the last one, but it's very hard. So the questions are, we will take as many questions as possible.
I will, and I'm glad that you mentioned AC specifically, because one small update that we do need to make is that the last revision on that was in 2024, not November 7th, 2025. So we'll make sure that happens.
Oh yeah,
before it gets
I was like, wait,
posted.
that's in the future.
That's right.
So that was my dumb, like, critical question, whatever. I'm curious, and maybe I'm opening a can of worms here, but how are we defining affirmative action? Has that definition changed? Is that I feel like that seems like that has evolved over the years, exactly what affirmative action is.
So nothing has really changed in terms of the federal language that we're using from the 2020 rules, which we adopted in 2021, and the state law, Maine Human Rights Act information that was most recently updated in 2023. So there's
affirmative
not
action
been
is still a legal term that is in federal and state.
Yeah, we have to follow all the affirmative action pieces.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have an affirmative action officer who's Dr. Julie Olson for the district. And none of that has changed in terms of affirmative action.
Okay.
And this cross-reference is an affirmative action plan. Is that available on the policy page, or is that
Yep,
somewhere?
it's on there.
It's on, yes, on the policy page at
Great.
the bottom.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, sure. Happy to take other questions too. So a couple of those items I know are deletions, again, just because of how the rules at the federal level differed a little bit between the first Trump administration and Biden administration's rules. So it required deleting a couple things because there were just more documents under the Biden administration rules.
Any other questions? Great. All in favor? Great. It's unanimous. Thank you. I know that was a lot of work to get through all of these and all the changes too, so I appreciate that. All right, moving on. Superintendent's report.
For the superintendent's report tonight, had royalty at Mabel Wilson. Tatum Ledoux and Allison Flewitt's classes recently completed a unit on kings and queens and celebrated the learning with a royal tea party and ball. Mr. Muncy and Mrs. O were cordially invited to be the king and the queen. They all truly look very royal in that photo. Very cute. GMS 4.5 Global Play Day was March 12th, and it is an annual tradition at 4.5. They have an early release, take an early release, and the students really are able to make choices about what they want to do. We say Global Play Day, but it's a lot of learning by playing is really the purpose of that. And it's really a big hit. There's tons of things offered. Also at 4.5, fifth grade students created a close-up textured collage of animal faces. The layers of the collage included torn paper with a radial background, oil pastel, eyes and nose, and a final layer of acrylic paint for feathers and fur. So I know you can't see that. This will be in the report on the website as well. And the middle school 6-8, I know for a few years now they've offered a glow dance for students. It's a big hit. If you remember your middle school days as a student, like I do, there was always that awkward middle school dance. I think we didn't have the glow dance back then. They do, and I think it makes it really festive and fun for the students. I know that it's a big draw. Congratulations to our student athletes who completed in the Special Olympic swimming event in Cape. Ayla Jimeno took first place, Gregor Strout and Avery Clemitis placed in 2 events as well. So just want to congratulate all of our Special Olympians. Congrats also to the students from Mrs. Botto's IB Visual Arts class for a great, successful art exhibition that was held in the GCA for a few weeks. I think she took it down at this point, but it was a great exhibit and really spruced things up in the GCA lobby. Also at the high school, this has become many years of tradition, anything but a backpack day. If you were told you can't bring your backpack to school, what would you do otherwise? And so there are a lot of, I remember last year there was like a canoe. Oh, there was, this year too. I didn't see that. The kayak. So there's all kinds of ways that you can get around the school. Rangers Rock Edition, Maine State Math Meet. Congratulations to our JHS math team for placing 5th in the state math meet. That's very good when you consider how many high schools are in Maine. So congratulations. I won't list all those names, but they'll be on the report. Active Minds Cow Cares Club provided our high school staff with some amazing treats as they walk through the door. So this group has really been active for the last couple of years, recognizing mental health, and this time they decided to work to help the staff on a particular morning, so it was really nice. Congrats to Bez and Maya for being the Western Maine Conference Citizenship Award winners for the Western Maine Conference. Another wonderful turnout to the Best Buddies Prom of 2025. This is also an annual tradition that's been going on for a little while now. Also a big hit, and it's really wonderful to see all the students participating in this and dressing their best. You can't take it with you. Bravo to the amazing high school drama cast and crew for the unforgettable performance. Really, it was just very well done. I enjoyed it myself. I know that it was well attended. I think it had three performances, and it was a big hit. I want to say congrats, and actually you can see this right outside the Geiger room. High school senior Andrew Flanders came up with this idea about a year ago as part of his Boy Scout program or Eagle Scout project for the Boy Scouts, and came up with the idea of putting a kiosk. He worked with our maintenance staff to find a place, worked with our high school administration as well. And so this is a resource that's for the community, not just the school community, but for anyone visiting the school. And there's resources that can be taken out of this kiosk. And in the artwork, I forget who helped with the artwork on the other side of that, but one of the students did that worked with Andrew. So congratulations, that's really great. On March 14th, there was a professional development day for all staff that day, and each school had different activities all day long. These are just samples of just different activities that were going on during that day at Mabel I. Wilson School, for example. I stopped in and they were doing a safety tabletop exercise using the Alice approach. We're always revisiting things to make sure that we're not forgetting things, especially around safety. At 4-5, one of the activities that day was having all of the staff make choices about digging into areas around meaningful feedback for students and promoting academic engagement with students as part of their SIP. And again, this is connected to the supporting staff plan as well, which is to help our staff with these areas. At 6-8, Lindsay Horowitz and Mark McDonough worked with our 6-8 staff around strategies connected to the multi-tier systems of support, which is MTSS, which is what we've been transitioning, as you know, from response to intervention, instead of saying that, which is not as encompassing as MTSS, really looking at the MTS model, which is encompassing of everything A to Z. Often RTI does not involve gifted and talented, for example, and MTSS is a little bit more comprehensive. The state moved to that a few years ago. So continuing to work on that as a staff. And then while I was also in the room, J.C. Morrill is a teacher at GMS 6-8. She introduced some guidelines for AI in the classroom. There's administrative guidelines. There's a staff group that worked with Mari Trebilcock, and Mari actually will be back in a month to update you on a couple of topics. AI will be one of them. And at the high school, Dr. Anita Stewart McCafferty, she's a well-known professor at USM, head of the leadership department there. She worked with all staff. I was able to participate in this workshop as well. Brain-compatible principles and brain-friendly strategies. And just some really useful things you could use tomorrow in high school classrooms. And I know she got a lot of feedback. She does a lot of outreach work with staff across the state, or at least in this area of the state. And with the One Campus model, or the One Campus project, I just want to call attention to something that is on our website. And again, this is just more public-facing stuff. By year, we have different activities. They're delineated. These are things that we've been talking about, but kind of all in one place as things have been happening this year. You can see in the yellow, blue is more leadership. The leadership team has been working on things like staff rosters, finishing those up, and just trying to make sure that we're looking ahead, looking at the new grade configurations, and making sure that we've got all of the roles in the district that are needed in all of these schools. It's a tremendous amount of work. Our leadership team has done an amazing job putting this together in advance of asking staff for their preferences as we start the reassignment process in the fall. And then the yellow is all of the work, obviously Tim Valente and the whole building committee crew, and Jesse and the whole turf committee is on there, but just everything that's been going on, and quite frankly, we had some things this week we still haven't put in here, and but it's just part of the planning process. Nothing different, no surprises, but just kind of keeping a record of all that, and as we're doing the planning. So this is a huge lift. This project, it is quite honestly consuming a lot of our time in the district office in getting prepared for this summer as we break ground. I think that was it. Yes, that's it.
Yeah, thank you. And I know you guys have put a lot of time in trying to make resources available about everything that's going on, especially now that there's actual work starting on campus, which is really exciting. But there's so much that goes in behind the scenes. I think, just thinking about what, some of the conversations earlier today with like planning for, there's some significant moves that are happening between buildings and which buildings are what grades. And really trying to have enough time to work through
Yep.
that process. Because there's and just how we're watching our budget as it relates to all these changes as well. There's just a lot going on.
A lot. Yep.
Okay. Now we're moving to committee reports. We have one student, Sophia.
All alone today. So, tomorrow marks the end of quarter 3 for all grades in the high school tomorrow. Seniors are focused on our final push. We're gearing up for spring sports, exams starting in May, and of course prom and senior projects. And then there's also, I saw it in the Ranger report a couple of days ago, there's a student clothing drive that's partnered with Maine Needs that is focused on gathering formal dresses, so prom and homecoming dresses, which I know for me, I buy them once and they sit in my closet for a couple years. So if anybody has any prom and homecoming dresses, they can take them to the main lobby from next Monday to next Friday. And then I would also like to take this time to echo what was said during public comment, because I think many of my peers would agree with it as well. Today in advisory, seniors were given the opportunity to write a letter to a staff member that has made a difference throughout our high school years. And I wrote mine to Miss Goldblatt. She was my 8th grade English teacher, and like many of my other classes during that COVID year, I'm sure our class was pretty grueling to teach. We were essentially silent the whole year. And then yet when Miss Goldblatt moved up to the high school my sophomore year, she remembered me and has continued to engage with me since then. My junior year, I had a pretty stressful period, which ultimately came to me in tears in the middle of the English hallway, and she overheard my conversation that I was having with a teacher and sent me a really meaningful and thoughtful email that really made a difference. And then again, this past fall, seniors were provided with the opportunity to spend the day working on college essays with English teachers in the library. And though I hadn't had her as a teacher for 4 years, she excitedly came over to me and asked if she would get to see my essay, and then spent 2.5 hours of her time that day working directly with me on the essay. And then, especially after last meeting, I'm sure that the Finance Committee has spent countless hours on the budget, but I'm also sure that any one of my peers who has had Ms. Goldblatt as a teacher would be able to share stories that are similar to mine. And because of that, I would like to urge us to take another look at the budget while we might still have time and see if there's any way to find a better solution.
Thank you, Sophia. Now you're going to make me cry. That was wonderful. Thank you for sharing your experience. Appreciate that. Finance, Kim?
So we are still, the budget is still fluid. We had a really good meeting last week, a week ago today. A couple community members came, and I think that we have made progress with how we are listening to the community and how they are receiving the information. There was positive feedback on how we're being thoughtful on the budget and what we are and are not including this year. So I felt like it was a really strong meeting, very productive, and very just a really good opportunity to interact with the community members who showed up. So I want to thank those 2 community members for taking time out of their Thursday to come to a finance committee meeting. And I really want to thank Sarah and Sean for all the work the 2 of you have done to work on this and to bring things to the table. The questions that we've been asking, probing questions, have been really important. So having said that, there is still time to bring your input, bring your questions. A reminder that 2 weeks from tonight is the night that we as a board vote on the budget. Yes? Okay. Yes. And there will be opportunities for public comment at that meeting. And then the next time that there's a vote on the budget is the district wow, I can remember what that one's called. Hearing? Is it
District budget meeting.
the district budget meeting? Is there a hearing though as well?
There's a hearing on April 17th.
Okay.
Right before the board adopts the budget or votes to adopt the budget.
So that's the same night. Okay. So 2 weeks from tonight, thank you. I didn't have this in front of me. 2 weeks from tonight is our district hearing, as well as when the board votes on the budget. And then there's the district budget meeting, which sounds as exciting as it is. And having said that, that is a time when the community has the opportunity to vote on each of the cost centers and really get specific, as opposed to the June budget referendum, which is a vote on the bottom line. So please continue to reach out. Please continue to ask your questions, offer your inputs, and to the point that was made tonight, I think that one of the things that we know as a finance committee, and I genuinely appreciate about the committee, about Scott, about Jeff, is that we get into the numbers, but we're also very, very much aware that every number connects to a human being, whether it's a teacher or a student or a taxpayer. So it is hard to balance the needs of different people, but I just want to reassure, and hopefully Sean and Sarah agree on this, that that we do take into account the person, not just the numbers. So.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
What was the date for the
I was
district budget?
I was
meeting?
just going to say May 8th at the
Right here.
GCA.
Thank you.
So yes, May 8th, Thursday, May 8th, GCA.
6:30?
No, it's at 7 o'clock.
Oh.
It says 6 o'clock on the on the school calendar, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Thursday,
I
May
will-
8th, school board meeting.
Yeah.
That
6
shouldn't
to
be
8
the
p.m.,
case.
GCA.
Okay.
Good job, Megan.
Yeah.
Good
thank
thing we're
you.
talking about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll change it.
Bang up
Okay.
job.
It is 6 o'clock, right? Is
No,
this-
it's 7.
Oh, it's 7, so
Oh.
it is.
Yeah, the reason it's 7, we've gone round and round every single year on this, and it's because of so many activities that time of year in May with Little League and softball and everything like that's going on. For parents, if they want to come, at least one of the parents in the household to have dinner and everything and get there, doing it any before 7 o'clock, it doesn't work. So.
Okay. Thank you. Annika, policy.
Yeah, so speaking of school calendar, although at a higher level, the policy committee did take up school calendar policy, which had, I think, been drafted maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, in terms of the changes that we were looking at. So for first read this evening, we do have school calendar, and the changes here are a fairly minor update to language in terms of state and federal holidays as opposed to legal holidays. And then, more importantly, I think, putting into policy that we will notate prominent religious and cultural holidays, as has become our practice to do, but this would put it into our policy. That we would do that.
Any questions on that? Okay.
And I was just going to say, in terms of any more of an update, we had our last meeting earlier this week, and we'll be bringing a couple other policies for first read, likely at the next meeting, around administering medication to students and school board use of electronic, or actually we realized this was not, school board use of email and other electronic communications. I don't know. I'm not looking at the correct title at the moment. It used to just be electronic mail, but now it's slightly different. And our continuing conversations around use of social media by school employees, student dismissal precautions, security camera systems. We'll also be circling back to delegating the naming of the new school building under the policy FF that we more recently revised and adopted, and continuing some conversations around requests that we've received to review crisis policies, public participation at board meetings policy, and law enforcement relations, specifically having to do with warrants. So I suspect a number of those things will be on our next agenda for April 15th, just ahead of our next full board meeting.
Great, thank you. Tim, school building facilities.
Okay. We haven't met in a little while. It feels like a really long time for us. I think middle of March. Last we met, just to close the loop on something, I think I brought up some challenges in just the dynamic of the design team, staff, us, board, and then community as well, of just making sure we were aligned and communicating effectively. I think we had a really great conversation with Scott and Jeff, the design team. Leanne was there too, of just kind of not reframing, but making sure that our priorities and that we were communicating a little bit more effectively. So we did a pre-meeting, and I think led to maybe our best meeting, or one of our best meetings in the middle of March, where we went over alternates. And so, yeah, I feel good about where we are from a communication standpoint. I feel like we're more aligned from that. So that's just to close the loop on the feedback I gave last time. So last month we reviewed alternates and determined what essentially would be in our base bid, and I will give you the highlights of that. There were questions as to some of the stuff we've been presented around parking. So we've seen it in our plan. We've all agreed of the what parking lots that we are expecting, and that some of those lots were initially presented to Leanne and I, and also the building committee, as alternates, and we took that out. Those are just part of the base bid. So all parking that you guys have seen in the plan are part of the base. But the other alternate highlights are in Mabel I. Wilson, renovating a room to become a STEM room, and makes us a little bit more prepared to have fourth graders in there. A new nursing station, perhaps redoing the admin office so that we can have a better conference room, another bathroom in there, and just another, I said conference room already. In the new school, there's an alternate around casework, because currently the case working right now is particle board, and we have fear of some of that lasting very long. That's the same kind of thing or same theme for some of the doors that we have there, which are good and fine, but there's other material we might look at that might last longer. So it's stuff like that of where can we make improvements in terms of longevity and quality. So there's that, and then there's another big one about campus repaving, where we're ripping up a lot around here, and we'll repave all that of what we are ripping up. But there's gonna be a real difference between the roadways that have been repaired by us or are brand new versus what is existing, and so that's another alternate. And then our next meeting is next Wednesday on the 9th at 6. I think we'll meet in here. We're going to review the budget. I've been told that the cost estimator will have the new estimates by tomorrow night, and we should receive them by Tuesday in a small group, and then we'll share it with the team on Wednesday. I think just as a heads up that we are watching very closely what some of the unknowns around the economy right now are, and tariffs, and so other cost estimators are building in a new tariff contingency, which would fall on top of our current contingencies. So there's just, I think 4/9 is going to be a really important meeting. We're scheduled right now to present to you a final project on the 17th, which, given the fact that we're reviewing the budget on the 17th, there's just a lot happening on that time. But right now we're scheduled for that. If all goes according to plan on next week, we will do that. But if we have to hold based off questions we have at the building committee level, what we get from the cost estimators, we'll give you an update. But let's hope that everything runs smoothly, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, I found that prep meeting very effective, which reminded me I thought we were going to have one for next week, and maybe make sure that's on the...
Yes, and on Tuesday they have shot back. I think they're on that email, but if not, that's not your fault. Yes, Tuesday we're supposed to have one. We should actually schedule it. I don't think it's been scheduled.
Okay, maybe
it's
that's...
just been more of like, we should meet Tuesday.
Okay, yeah, because I'm like, I don't have it in my... If it's,
We haven't told
not on
Melissa.
my calendar, it doesn't exist.
We should tell Melissa, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for those updates. Yes, we're very much looking forward to what the cost estimator comes up with. Christina, curriculum.
Curriculum. We had a meeting on Monday, and we had 2 items we were discussing. One is advanced math, which has been a concern for a while of particularly students and parents. The issue is that at certain point, if you haven't had, I don't want to use the word tracking, so I won't. I'll put it out there, but I won't use it. Depending on what level you've been put in 4, 5?
Starting
6.
6th grade, yeah.
Okay. Then you may or may not be able to get to calculus in high school, which, you know, by the time some students get to high school, they realize, oh, I do want to go into certain fields, and so it's important to be able to get to that. So there was a lot of discussion. Mari had met, we were waiting for Mari to meet, get schedules aligned, so she was able to meet finally with student government and talk to students themselves about their concerns and stresses and everything else about being able to access advanced math. So a lot of information came out, no particular decisions yet, but a lot of information came out. There's concern about, like I said, students who aren't yet lined up at certain levels, then they are not going to be able to access Algebra 1. The clincher is Algebra 1. When do you get to Algebra 1? But there's 2 sides to the coin. On the one hand, if it's offered in middle school, as was discussed, that may be just too stressful for some kids. I mean, developmentally, some may not be ready for that more abstract math. And others, on the other hand, other students are like ready for it. And there's a stressor in not being challenged enough. So the big clinch pin is really when and how do you decide which students are ready? So there was a lot of discussion around that and what different determiners teachers could use to figure out which students could be recommended for it, and discussions with parents and whatnot. So it's still in discussion, and a lot of good issues were brought up, but it's something that needs to be explored and at some point, probably next year. Decided on.
And thank you for sharing that. I know I've heard that from my own
Yeah.
students. I think the issue is nobody knew, like middle school parents and kids, like these are things that they even know about.
Yeah, it's on the horizon, like what? And it's important to get it out there in the public so that parents, middle school or coming into middle school, know that we're aware of the issue. And I would just add that in these student interviews for student reps, certainly last year, almost every student interviewed, possibly every, if I go back to my notes, brought that up as a concern they wanted addressed as a student rep.
I love that.
It's that big
came from
big a deal.
The students, because it sounds like you got to high school and then you realized your opportunities may have been limited.
Yeah.
And so, that's awesome.
So that was most of the curriculum meeting. The other part was just a brief presentation. Katie Wallace, our junior student rep, is also very interested in exploring elementary world languages. So she had asked me whether she could put together a slideshow. I'm like, yeah, sure. So I gave her what I knew of some area schools that are doing elementary level world languages. They are few and far between and had some successes, and they have different models. So she described some of that. I'm wondering if we can, in some capacity, get her slideshow up for either sharing with you all or sharing online, or I can talk to you about that. But basically, she went over what the area schools are doing, the benefits, why we'd even be exploring this. And then she actually went into a big list of potential ways it could be implemented here. And there are a lot of different ways that it could be done. And so I just shout out to her for jumping in there and really exploring something. So I'm sure the conversation will continue. And Mr. Porter said that he would be discussing potential elementary world languages and strategic planning as one topic among many.
Yes, I'm coming to you, I think it's the May.
It's the next meeting, it's it's May meeting, yeah.
And
And then
talking
he'll,
about the process.
will come, yeah.
Great.
Can I ask a question? So on the back to the Algebra 1 thing.
Yes,
So I don't have a kid in middle school yet, but so from the track perspective, I do have an understanding that like it sounds like in middle school, right? At 6th grade, they split up almost into 2 cohorts. Is that right? Like, so what percentage of students are we talking about that will not have access to? Like, do we have any understanding? Because that changes, I feel like, the urgency or how we communicate right now, is that parents are aware of it and not just, it's great that we're bringing it up here, but like, I don't know if that needs a much bigger communication out and then
I think that's coming. I think this was an area where, you know, Mari wanted to talk to the student government. What are the concerns? Get them out there. And then have me sort of explain, like, hey, we're looking into this. We're aware. We're acknowledging, yes, it's a big problem. I should avoid caution. I shouldn't have used the word track, because that's a very touchy.
You did
older
say
kind of
that,
word.
and
I did not
I
say that, so
repeated
erase
it.
that part, please. But, you know, options.
Yeah.
And it's a concern that needs to be explored more. And I don't know. We didn't talk numbers at all.
We don't know.
Though I could tell you though, when Mari was addressing it in the meeting as well, she was saying, because I was asking, if students were chosen or wanted to do Algebra 1 in middle school, what numbers are we talking? And, you know, it was really in the clouds, but they wouldn't be getting their own class as such. They would just be studying that more. I believe expedited was the word that was used, but I mean, don't.
No, I'm just thinking back to that survey response that was like, are we serving our
kids.
advanced students? And so like that gets to me of like, oh,
Yeah, approximately what percentage in 6th grade are advanced versus grade level?
So I can answer it from a curriculum angle too. We did used to have a lot more students getting Algebra 1, and I don't know if Mari went into this at the meeting or not. Unfortunately, I didn't get it to this meeting. And then we changed math programs, and when we changed math programs, the math program that we went to had a lot more Algebra 1 content in it for all students. So all students, the idea was to get all students more Algebra 1 content instead of, you know, pulling kids out. However, we continue to meet the needs of those kids that really need something different. That's what we've been doing, but we wanted to make sure all students were getting Algebra 1 as well through this curriculum. Through this program that's connected to the curriculum. So if I had to ballpark it, it's like a quarter, 3/4, maybe a quarter of our students are getting that. It might be a little bit more than that.
Okay.
Tim, I would say my 8th grade year, there was one class in each team that was getting it, so about a quarter. Okay. And
so
I think
one class was getting Algebra 1?
2, sorry, in each team. So there's 2 total classes, which was about a quarter of our grade.
Okay.
But that was also the old curriculum, so.
If you use my household as a sample, it would be 50%. 2 of my 4.
Yeah.
But I don't think that counts.
And I don't think we're not the only school district that I think is I think I've read things like this is an issue that's being looked at across the country. Just about, I think Algebra 1 used to be more at middle school, and then it was sort of pulled out, and now we're sort of facing that.
There's always been a strong interest in this community to have an Algebra 1 option at the middle school for kids that really want to get deep into Algebra 1, to the point where they're ready for Algebra 2 or geometry in 9th grade, but they're done with Algebra 1. When we went to this new math program, we were trying to bring all students up for Algebra 1 in 8th grade. But I think the conversation shifted back. We've got to keep that group of students that needs a little bit more. I know that a lot of middle schools go back and forth on this. This is not, my own kids in a different district also went through this Algebra 1 or not in 8th grade. And so it is a commonplace topic. I think what we're hearing is that more families would like that deeper dive into Algebra 1 in order to do calculus by high school, by 12th grade in high school. That's still always a concern. We want more kids able to take calculus, by the time they, are able to do that in 12th grade.
I don't know if this is an option, but I remember when I was in high school, we had, you could sign up to take Algebra 1 the first semester of summer school before 9th grade. Second semester was, so summer was first semester, second semester was the first semester of school, and then geometry. And so by sophomore year, you were ready for Algebra 2, which is kind of the same idea. So there might be creative ways.
That was brought up in the
That was
meeting,
brought up.
like the idea of summer school, some students doing tutoring, doing it. A view was expressed that may not be best, because that may serve students who are able to access that and not others who want to access that, money, the costs, the summer. So
Yeah, we've had that
possible option
here as well, conversations about, we've had students in the summer to try to shore up and get ready or advance out of the Algebra 1 piece too. So I think it's a good conversation. It's come up a couple of times since I've been in here in the past to relook at it. So I definitely think it's worth probably a broader conversation at some point. And I know Maria obviously is very in tune with it, having just been the principal at 6-8. She has a lot of knowledge about this, and certainly it's a good area for her to look at again with the middle school.
Great. Okay.
Can I add
Oh,
one
so-
thing,
go
just
ahead.
real quick? One of the things that Mari did really want to point out was that some of the kids weren't really, while they were academically ready, they may not brain-wise be ready for some of the concepts of Algebra 1. And that really created a challenge because it added to the stress and the trickle down of the getting ready for what's next. That constant chase. And so the mental health aspect is just a huge concern for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about, that was a good point you made, and we talked about how there's both sides of that. Stress, like, oh my God, I should be doing this, Algebra 1, and some kids aren't ready. On the other hand, there's mental stress for other kids who are like, I am so bored, I am so ready. So where to find that balance is the key.
Yeah,
I just have one question. Is it currently because I know when I attended here, we had a test, I think, because it was 7th, 8th grade together as a junior high. So 7th grade, we had a test, which defined, like, how we did. And, like, if we were borderline, obviously it was a parent, child choice. But is that something we do now? Is it teacher-based? Is it what determines the path, I
You
guess,
mean
right now?
to go into high school, you mean?
It would be
Or just
going
the
to sixth
math that
grade.
they-
How
Going to
Yeah.
6th grade.
Isn't it advanced math that in your 5th grade
Yes.
teacher says during
It's
your parent-teacher
recommendation.
conference this time of year, I'm gonna recommend that your kid goes into advanced math is what currently I believe they're calling
Yeah,
it.
it's a recommendation from the
So it's
teacher.
5th grade teacher, so then you
But is
start.
it a test?
No.
Teacher
It's
recommendation.
based on
Yeah, that's right. That's
what
all
your
I
5th
heard.
graders
Yeah.
done that year.
Yeah.
I guess one more thing that I would add from the conversation that the committee had and that Mari mentioned was just looking maybe more at an annual reassessment so that it's not just that you get recommended in 5th grade either for advanced math or not, and then that's what you're doing for the next 3 years. But it sounds like even last year, or even this year, I'm sorry, that Dr. Selby may be working with teachers this spring to identify kind of who are those students who are on the bubble who could potentially move from grade level math to advanced math and have that be something that is looked at every year.
Yeah, and I appreciate my own family's experience of when, like, probably my kiddo wasn't ready, and then halfway through the year, they was given the opportunity to move, and so that is the individualized nature, I think, of what this district does really well too. So I appreciate that. All right, equity.
Yes, we are meeting this coming week, but we also met on March 12th, and we haven't had a school board meeting with committee updates since then, so I'll just highlight that meeting from March. We were able to bring in 4 of the student leaders who were involved with Dialogue Across Differences. And it was really great to hear from them. It had been about 6 weeks since their big workshop. I believe that's correct. Does that sound about right? About 6 weeks? Do you remember?
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay.
The week it was done the week before February break, right?
Yeah. Okay. So then, so maybe about a month. Anyway, it gave them some time to sort of process how they felt about it, and really able to talk about what worked well, what sort of follow-up there's been. And they are seeing some really positive results. They are seeing that the students in the high school are maybe interacting a little bit more. There's a little bit more going on at lunchtime. Getting to know just a couple interesting things about your classmates has created opportunities for more just kind of fun conversations and places for people to connect and find out things that they have in common. So it was a really, really encouraging presentation and conversation. And we spent the majority of the meeting being able to just kind of pick their brains as well about what else could be going on, whether that is something that they could bring down to the middle school and use their experience with the high school to see how that might work at the middle school. So very, very encouraged. They are fantastic student leaders, and that was just a small sampling of the huge group that got involved. But it was just some nice, encouraging news to hear that a lot of Greeley students, it seems, are feeling much more of a sense of inclusivity and belonging than maybe they had a year or two ago. So that was fantastic. And other than that, we're just doing what we're doing, working through the plan and making sure that every single student and community member at Greeley has an opportunity to achieve their best and that there are no obstacles to that. So that's what we're doing.
I'll add something. It was about 6 weeks ago,
Okay.
But I would also say that from my 4 years at Greeley, I think that's been like the student-led conversations have been one of like the best and most impactful like group talks or like things like assemblies and stuff like that that's had an impact on students. So yeah, good work.
I have nothing to do with it.
Awesome. Okay, is there any ad hoc committee reports?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
So we have a community partners meeting coming up with PTO and Foundation 51 on the 16th. In the meantime, I had brought up PTO has a number of things that I was looking at on their Facebook page. So there is a Greeley Gear spring sale happening now through April 7th. They also have a technology use workshop coming up on April 10th with Erica Marcus, a mindfulness director and author. Sounds like, I suspect, could be of great interest to many folks in our community. So encourage folks to get out for that. And then they are doing an April vacation readathon, which I think is maybe the second year that they've done this, specifically with kindergarten through third grade. So that'll be kicking off on April 17th.
Great, thank you. Any other ad hoc committees?
Not this week.
Okay, so the next is the communications item, and there is a draft board schedule that's been shared. So this continues with our Thursday meetings for next year for those of you who might be part of next year's board. And I see the question mark on the time for the May budget meeting.
I think it's 7 o'clock.
he said 6:30 question mark.
Yes, 7.
When do we need to finalize this by? Is this like
It's
our
not a
first
vote.
read?
It's not really a vote. It's just if there's any issues with it,
Okay.
or anything like that. The one big one is the retreat in the summer, and part of it is we didn't want to presume people's summer schedules. So Melissa knows she'll have to work with all of the people on the board to figure out. I know we had I think we went back and forth 55 times last year because everybody's got different schedules. But we'll figure it out. The other thing is Eileen King from MSMA. She's the Deputy Executive Director of MSMA. She Leanna and I had talked about, we haven't done this for a while. We used to have MSMA come down more regularly and work with the board. But they usually will do a program for boards. That's part of what they do. We get a free, part of our free membership. And she'll come down and work with the board for like an hour, hour and a half during that retreat. But again, we have to work with her schedule, all of your schedules. So Melissa's going to really be doing her magic to try to figure out what works in August for all of you and for Eileen too, who's very busy. So.
And we typically wait until after the elections in June, just so the new board members' schedules can also be accommodated. But yeah, the one meeting to get on your calendar is that July 17th meeting, because that's our one regular board meeting during the summer, where there's some important things that could come up.
It's mostly staff appointments. Any new staff, that's an important meeting for approving staff.
Okay. And we'll just take a double check about Thursday meetings before Fridays that are off on vacation weeks. Just we know that.
Yeah, because I already see that's a
that's
conflict.
Probably in April again.
April is a conflict again. I mean, if we can try to figure out a different date.
Yeah, this far in advance.
I'll just start.
Yeah, even if
that's the only one I saw.
Yeah, because February, the Friday is school.
My anniversay, I ain't gonna be here.
Oh, happy anniversary!
I'm just gonna toss that out.
Well, we'll move it so you can be.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to move anything. I'm just saying I'm not gonna make it.
Put Sarah down. Oh, can't. We'll reschedule just for you.
Mm-hmm.
And has the joint times been shared with the towns yet, or those?
The what?
The joint meetings.
No, those were. I don't believe so. We kind of penned in what we were doing this year, and we're going to then check with the towns.
Okay.
But we wanted to make sure it was okay with the board first. But we will communicate those.
Okay.
Yep.
Do other board members have questions yet about the calendar? Okay. I know. I feel like I'm already scheduling my own stuff out, and if they're not on the calendar, right, it doesn't exist. I guess I need to get reelected first.
Check with the towns before she did those.
None of it matters. Keep forgetting about that part. Okay. Awesome. That was really all I had. Yes, Christina.
One other communication.
Oh, yes. Go ahead.
I just want to give a shout out to our junior student rep, Katie Wallace. Apparently, she likes all things government. So she really wanted to come visit at the State House, which if anyone wants to, any of you out there here, let me know. But she apparently was really into it, and she wanted to see a full day. Okay. So that would be caucus, session, and committee meeting, which, be a normal day. As it turned out, she picked a day that was a record day. The record's been broken, mind you, but she picked a day where we were going over the budget. And I mentioned this because she did us proud. All our student reps are very poised and very mature, and I have to say that the 14 hours that she was there, she carried herself very well. She didn't splay on the floor. Some legislators did. And I just want to say she really was very impressive and did us proud.
Cool.
So I can't guarantee a shorter day if any of you want to come visit or anyone out there in school land. But yeah, it was a good day and she did us well.
Yeah.
Cool. I was proud.
That's very cool. Thanks for sharing.
We share that on social media too. Social media.
Yeah.
So this may not be the right area for this, but it didn't seem like something to ask Mari either. What do we have communications in place to talk with alumni, to find out about how not being able to be in advanced math may have affected college, or just even talking to my own kids who have graduated, some of the feedback, most of it very, very strong when they get to college. The things that they learned here at Greeley, particularly the 7th grade executive functioning skills, they still rely on that. So I'm just curious.
I know we've asked about this previously.
No, the reason we used to have a person in our office, but we eliminated the position years ago. I was a community outreach person. And part of her job is to connect with alumni. The problem is that when we don't get students' emails when they leave. So we tried, and all their emails change, everything changes, and it was unreliable. And there's no way for us to keep up with it. We don't collect through Power School. We can't do that. So there's no way to really for us to connect with alumni. So.
Are there class reunions here often?
Yes.
There's one every, there's all kinds of reasons.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like there may be like class specific.
Actually, that's a good job for Marie. I'm going to have her start visiting class reunions.
We'll have a sign-up, sheet,
yeah.
I mean, when we talk about outcomes, right, it's just, it's hard when they stop. Like, the only marker that we have is maybe when and if they went to college right after high school, but then we don't even know the college graduation rates, right?
We used to get more information. We used to get a data report every year from, I think it was Department of Ed, and they would give us information about at least the state schools and information about our district and how they were doing, but we haven't had that in years. So we don't have a good way of outreaching to alumni. We
Sarah?
don't.
And I would be as curious about not so much as what college they got into, but what college they took their sophomore, junior, and senior year at, and did they take their senior year? And and obviously not all of that reflects on the Greeley education, but it would also be a good data points for things like tracks in 4th and 5th grade and carrying forth and stress and so on.
And that was the report we used to get. It would actually have enough information that would track, and it was I don't remember where it came from exactly, but we got it from the district.
So it's the National Student Clearinghouse does it, and you can do that. And it's hard to get that information. It's like 40 to 50% response, return. But Power School does have like add-ons if we were looking into that, where you could store some of where if alumni would have to like sign permission or not subscribe, there's like legal things to us annoying them from an alumni standpoint. But there are options if that's an investment that one wants to make, that you could follow and track and send to alumni emails or updates. Do you want to update your email from this point and stuff? There are options, but it is an investment in Power School. It's not free or anything. But National Student Clearinghouse is free, and I have contacts there if we need to get some of those.
Could it be as simple as putting a link on our website, just have an alumni tab, and maybe have an ongoing a Google form, where either we could say, what year did you graduate? What were some things that were really beneficial to you? And then try to promote that without, a specific survey. But I don't know, just opportunities for graduates, because I think that when they look back after 5-10 years, they can really say, wow, I didn't see it at the time, but this worked really well, or gee, I hope you guys have fixed this because this was a problem. It just might be interesting to have that.
There are Facebook. There's got to be Facebook groups, but those are like, now they have TikTok groups. I don't know where these alumni things got them. What are they doing?
They're not on Facebook. Not the
Signal groups.
I was just
going to say
Signal
anyway.
chats, maybe. So. No, I think it's something that keeps coming up, that as my kids get older, I certainly continue to be interested in, is there a culture where you need to go to a 4-year school, but then they aren't able to stay for whatever reason? And so just curious. Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Can I have a second? I'll second. Thank you, Kim. All in favor? Great. Unanimous. Good seeing everyone. Not too late yet.
Wow.
Which is good because I still have